It was supposed to be just another quiet Friday night. For girls, full of laughter, the scent of vanilla and chocolate frozen yogurt lingering in the air, the sound of their shoes tapping against the clean, tiled floor. Jennifer Harbison, only 17, stood behind the counter, her long hair pulled back as she wiped down the surface. Her younger sister Sarah, just 15, sat on a stool nearby, swinging her legs and teasing Jennifer about a boy from school. Beside them, 17-year-old Eliza Thomas stacked paper cups neatly on a shelf, humming softly. And then there was Amy Ayres, only 13, the youngest of the group, helping where she could, trying to fit in with the older girls. They were happy, safe, or at least they thought they were. You can almost hear the hum of the refrigerators, the faint squeak of the ceiling fan as it turns, the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. Outside, the streets of Austin, Texas, were winding down for the night. Customers came and went, a couple walking out with small cups of yogurt, a father buying a late-night treat for his kids, and somewhere unseen someone else was watching. But let me ask you, what if you knew this was the last time these 4 girls would be seen alive? Would you run in and stop it, or would you, like everyone else, walk away thinking nothing could possibly go wrong in a place like this? The clock ticked past 11 p.m. The shop was closing soon. The girls moved in rhythm, wiping, sweeping, preparing to lock the doors. But in the quiet hum of the night, there was a subtle shift. The kind of change you don't notice until it's too late. The door creaked open. 2, maybe more, shadowy figures stepped inside. No friendly greetings, no light conversation. Just silence, heavy and wrong. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air change? That sinking feeling in your stomach, telling you something isn't right? The girls must have felt it too, but what could they do? These men weren't there for frozen yogurt. We may never know exactly what was said in those first moments. Maybe one of the men smiled, pretending to be just another late customer. Maybe he asked for something from the menu, just to watch Jennifer step behind the counter. Or maybe the threat came instantly, sharp and cold. Either way, the balance of safety shattered in an instant. I want you to picture it. The bright, cheerful lights of the shop suddenly feeling too harsh, too revealing. The girls exchanged glances, their smiles fading. Hands shook, voices trembled. Somewhere, a metal latch clicked shut, a sign that escape might already be impossible. What do you think happened next? Did they try to run? Did they scream? Or did fear freeze them in place, their bodies refusing to move as danger crept closer? The official records tell us the men gained control quickly. They corralled the girls into the back of the shop, away from the large front windows, away from anyone who might walk by and see. Imagine the terror of being herded into that small back room, the smell of cleaning supplies sharp in the air, the clatter of a dropped spoon echoing far too loudly. Sarah must have reached for her sister's hand. Amy's breathing would have been quick and shallow, her eyes darting between the strangers. And yet, why this yogurt shop? Why these girls? Was it planned, or did they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? The men demanded the cash from the register. Jennifer handed it over, her fingers trembling so hard the bills slipped. But this wasn't just about money. If it was, they would have left right then. Instead, the night turned darker. You see, when fear is thick enough, you can almost taste it. It hangs in the air, making each breath a struggle. The girls might have tried to talk, to plead, but those words were swallowed by the weight of what was coming. And still, no one outside knew a thing. Cars passed by on the street. A couple walked past with a dog, unaware that inside, lives were seconds away from ending. What would you have done if you were one of those people outside? Would you have walked in just to check? Or would you have kept going, thinking, it's none of my business? Time passed, though how much exactly is unclear. And then, gunshots. Loud, sharp, echoing off the walls of the small shop. 1, 2, 3, 4. In that moment, 4 young lives were stolen. But even that wasn't enough for whoever did this. They poured accelerant over the scene, struck a match and set it ablaze. Flames roared to life, orange and hungry, consuming everything. The smell of smoke pouring out into the night, mingling with the distant sound of sirens. The fire was meant to destroy evidence, to erase the truth. But it couldn't erase the horror. The building would be reduced to a blackened shell, the cheerful colors of the yogurt shop gone, replaced by ash and silence. And here's the question that has haunted Austin ever since. Why? The fire tore through the yogurt shop like a living thing, licking up the walls, collapsing shelves, devouring the bright paper cups that only minutes earlier had been stacked so neatly. It wasn't until firefighters finally got the flames under control that the true horror revealed itself. For bodies huddled together in the back. The youngest, Amy, still barely clinging to life when they arrived, but her injuries were too severe. The room smelled of smoke, fuel, and something else, the unmistakable metallic scent of blood. Imagine being one of those firefighters, stepping into a place you thought was just another small business fire, and instead finding the lifeless bodies of 4 teenage girls. Would you be able to forget that sight? Could you ever sleep again without seeing their faces? The news spread quickly. By morning, the yogurt shop was surrounded by yellow police tape, the air thick with the murmurs of shocked neighbors and the flashing lights of television cameras. Parents clutched their children a little tighter. Reporters whispered words like execution style and arson. The city of Austin, known for its music and charm, suddenly felt smaller, darker. The police moved fast at first. They gathered what little evidence the fire hadn't destroyed. A few shell casings, partial prints, and fragments of burned items. But the real clues, the ones that might have told the whole story, had been swallowed by the flames. Still, detectives promised the community they'd find whoever was responsible. And here's where I have to ask you. If you were in charge of this investigation with so little to go on, where would you start? Would you chase every lead, no matter how thin, or would you wait, hoping someone would slip up and talk? Detectives started interviewing anyone who had been near the shop that night. Some witnesses remembered seeing 2 men lingering in the area just before closing. Others claimed they saw a third man in a dark car idling nearby. But as the days turned into weeks, no arrests were made. The families of the victims were left to bury their daughters without answers. Their grief compounded by the gnawing knowledge that whoever did this was still out there. Years passed, but the case never truly left the public's mind. Then, in 1999, 8 years after the murders, a break seemed to come. 4 men, all in their 20s now, were brought in for questioning. 2 of them, Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott, eventually gave detailed confessions. On paper, it looked like the case was solved. But there was a problem. The details in their confessions didn't match the physical evidence. Let me put it to you, if someone confesses to a crime, do you automatically believe them? Or do you ask yourself, why would someone admit to something they didn't do? Prosecutors pushed forward anyway, convinced the confessions were enough. In 2001, Springsteen was convicted and sentenced to death. In 2002, Scott was given life in prison. The other 2 men were never tried. For a brief moment, Austin breathed a sigh of relief. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But then came the twist. DNA evidence, tested years later with improved technology, didn't match any of the 4 men. Not even close. The state's key piece of physical evidence had just exploded in their hands. The convictions were overturned, and in 2009, both Springsteen and Scott were released. The case was once again wide open. Can you imagine what it must have been like for the victims' families to hear that news? To be told, after all those years, that the men behind bars weren't the killers after all? Would you feel relief that the wrong people weren't being punished, or rage that the right ones were still free? The police went back to square one, but the trail was colder than ever. Witnesses had moved, memories had faded, and the original crime scene was long gone. The yogurt shop had been rebuilt, but for many, it stood as a grim reminder of the night that shattered so many lives. Even today, when you walk by that spot in Austin, some people say they still feel it, that heaviness in the air, as if the building itself remembers. And here's the thing, with modern DNA testing, there's still a chance this case could be solved. But as of now, the match hasn't been found. Which leaves the question hanging in the air. Who really killed Jennifer? Sarah? Eliza, and Amy. What if the person is still out there, living a quiet life, walking past you in the grocery store? Would you recognize them? Would they look like a monster or just ordinary? Years have passed since the night the yogurt shop burned. But for the families, time has done nothing to dull the pain. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, all the moments that should have been theirs were stolen in a matter of minutes. Parents who once heard the laughter of their daughters filling the house now sit in silence, staring at framed photographs. Some still keep their girls' rooms untouched, as if they might walk back in at any moment. But deep down, they know they never will. Can you imagine living with that? Waking up every single day knowing that the people responsible for your child's murder are still free? Would you have the strength to keep going? Or would you be consumed by the need for answers? Detectives, too, carry the weight of this case. Some have retired, yet they admit they still wake up thinking about it. One investigator once said it's like chasing a shadow. Every time you think you're close, it slips away. And the problem isn't just the lack of evidence. It's that the crime itself was so brutal, so calculated, that it feels like the work of someone who's done this before, or someone who knew exactly how to erase themselves from a crime scene. The most haunting detail? The killer or killers may have been locals. People who blended in, who knew the area, who could walk the streets the next day and pretend nothing happened. Imagine crossing paths with them at a coffee shop, their hands stirring sugar into a cup, those same hands that hours earlier held a gun and struck a match. Would you even suspect them? In recent years, new forensic tools have given hope. YSTR DNA testing, the kind used to crack cases like the Boston Strangler, has been applied to evidence from the yogurt shop. But so far, no direct match has been found in any database. It's as if the killer has managed to stay one step ahead, never arrested for anything else serious enough to land their DNA in the system. What if the breakthrough comes tomorrow? What if a single swab from a routine arrest connects to that night in 1991? And here's the real question: would the killer even remember the details the way the rest of us do? Or have they buried it so deep they've convinced themselves it was just another night? The families have faced another cruel twist. Over the years, theories have spiraled out of control. Some armchair detectives insist there were 3 attackers. Others say it was a botched robbery. And some believe it was personal, that someone knew one of the girls. Every theory tears open the wound a little wider. But here's the thing about this case. It grips people. Even strangers who never met the girls find themselves haunted by their story. Maybe it's because the victims were so young. Maybe it's because they were just doing what we all do. Working a shift, hanging out with friends, making plans for the weekend, and in an instant their lives were gone. If you think about it, it could have been anyone. That's what makes this case so terrifying. There's no clear pattern, no obvious motive, nothing that tells you how to avoid ending up in the wrong place at the wrong time. And maybe that's why the killer has never been caught, because there's no one thing that ties them to the scene except the blood of 4 girls, and that, so far, has refused to tell its full story. Sometimes, late at night, the families still get calls from strangers claiming to know what happened. Most are lies, people seeking attention, but once in a while a detail slips through that isn't public. Sometimes, late at night, the families still get calls from strangers claiming to know what happened. Most are lies, people seeking attention, but once in a while a detail slips through that isn't public. A description of the room, the sound of something falling, the smell of gasoline. And then the police have to ask themselves, is this just another sick prank? Or could it be the killer finally letting something slip? And what would you do if you were the detective who got that call? Would you chase it all the way, even if it meant hitting another dead end? Or would you hold back, afraid to reopen wounds that never truly closed? Even now, the Austin Police Department says they're working the case. Files still get pulled from dusty shelves. Evidence still gets tested with new methods. Somewhere in those boxes, the answer waits. And when they find it, if they find it, the truth will be more shocking than anyone expects. Or maybe, the truth is something we've all been afraid to face. That the person who did this isn't a stranger in the shadows at all, but someone the girls knew. Someone they trusted enough to let inside after closing. And if that's true, then the question becomes, How many times did they look that person in the eyes before the night everything changed? There's something about an unsolved case that eats at people. The not knowing becomes its own kind of torment. For the families of Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy, that torment has lasted for more than 3 decades. They've lived through birthdays that never came, high school graduations that never happened, weddings that would never be, grandchildren that would never be born. Every holiday dinner has an empty chair that can't be filled, no matter how much time passes. And somewhere, maybe across town or maybe across the country, the person who stole all that from them is still breathing, still walking, still living. Have you thought about that? The idea that a killer could live quietly among us for years, blending into a crowd, never drawing suspicion? Would you be able to spot them if they were standing in line next to you? Or would they look like just another ordinary face? Another forgettable stranger? Over the years, there have been whispers, people pointing fingers in hushed tones, claiming they've seen someone act strangely when the case comes up. A few names get passed around in bars and coffee shops. Some say it was a crime of opportunity, that the killers never even knew the girls before that night. Others are convinced it was personal, that there was a connection, something hidden beneath layers of lies and silence. But the truth is still out there, locked in the mind of someone who has stayed silent for far too long. Imagine what it's like for that person, carrying the weight of this secret. Do they replay that night in their head? Do they hear the gunshots when the world around them is quiet? Or have they managed to bury it so deep that it's just another dark corner of their mind, one they never visit unless something forces it open? There are moments in cases like this when justice feels close enough to touch. A new technology, a new witness, a sudden confession. But then it slips away again like smoke between your fingers. The DNA evidence in this case, the one undeniable link to the killer, has told us one thing. Whoever did this wasn't any of the men convicted in 2001. And that means the real killer is still out there. What would you do if tomorrow your phone rang and it was the police, telling you they had found a match? That after all these years, they finally had a name? Would you feel relief? Or would you feel rage that it took so long? For the people of Austin, the yogurt shop murders have become more than a cold case. They're a wound in the city's history. People who lived here in 1991 remember exactly where they were when they heard the news. They remember the fear that gripped the city, the way parents kept their children closer, the way the night seemed to fall heavier. And they remember the faces of those 4 girls, smiling in photographs that would never age. Some nights, people claim if you walk past the shop's old location, you feel it, a chill in the air, the sense that you're being watched. Some say they've looked into the darkened windows and seen movement, shadows that don't belong to anyone. Of course, maybe it's just imagination, or maybe some places remember. And so we're left with the questions that have hung in the air for more than 30 years. Who walked into that yogurt shop that night? Why did they choose those 4 girls? And what have they done with the years they've stolen from them? Maybe one day soon, the truth will come crashing down, dragging the killer into the light. Or maybe it will stay hidden forever, locked away in dusty evidence boxes and fading memories. But until then, the faces of Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy will keep looking back at us from those photographs, asking for the one thing they've been denied for far too long: justice. And now I'll ask you, what do you think happened in that back room on the night of December 6, 1991? Because somewhere, someone knows the answer, and they're not telling. If this story sent chills down your spine, then don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another real-life mystery. Like this video if you believe these 4 girls deserve justice, and share it with someone who needs to hear their story. The more people know, the closer we get to finding the truth.